Hey everyone, Professor Snart here checking in. It's been a while. Been kind of under the weather and swamped with a bunch of other stuff that just, comes out of nowhere. But I'm feeling better and hopefully getting back into the swing of things here. And I'll try to get us actually a few units ahead so I'm not playing such catch up on a regular basis. So it's March the 7th as I'm recording this. We'll take a quick look at our due dates here slowly. So we're just finishing up Unit 4 and then turning into Units 5, 6, and I'll touch a little bit on 7, although that's getting pretty far in advance. I do want to remind people really quickly before I forget to. Oh, even Blackboard's slow today. That part of our course involves attending a poetry event, and this is sort of designed for you to be doing almost any time in the course, only reporting back to us by Unit 10 here, so it's not like you're waiting until Unit 10 or sometime way deep into the course to attend some sort of poetry event. We have a link set up here where as I run into different kinds of events, and again, taking poetry is a really sort of broad category. So I'll add them to our list, but it's also built so that you can visit the list here, and if you happen to see a flyer, a brochure, even if it's not something you plan to attend, but you think it might fit for someone in our course, by all means throw it in. I'll try to edit things just for formatting's sake, but I won't double check, so you always want to make sure that this is actually a thing that's happening and where it is and how much it costs or whatever. So I've loaded in then the COD performance of Much Ado About Nothing, the Shakespeare play. Again, not exactly poetry, but certainly by a well-known playwright and poet, and there's lots of what we might call poetic language in there. So we don't want to get too far afield when we think about attending a poetry event, and if you're unsure, you can always double check it with me. But it would be nice if we started to gather some possibilities here so people have a few things to choose from. So keep that in mind and keep it on your radar. Even though Unit 10 feels like a long ways away, it has us reporting back on a poetry event that hopefully people have attended in weeks and weeks potentially before that. All right, so we're in our second sonnets unit right now. Oh, Blackboard, come on. Having us write some sonnets, and again doing so intentionally updating our portfolio space here. The sonnet example, which I'm sure will load in just a second. It's being very slow. And then we're going to move into Units 5 and 6, which I want to spend a little bit of time explaining. There's actually a lot of text explanation and some kind of visuals to walk you through, but it's good to kind of review these as a class here. Have a little drink of coffee while Blackboard is thinking about itself. Okay. So the reading assignment here, we have a bunch of different poems, most of them fairly short, so it might look like a lot, but it's really not, that we're going to read for this unit. And then the assignment here, it really is like a lot of text and explanation, but it's actually fairly, in some ways straightforward, in some ways maybe not, but the basic assignment, like it says here, is really just a fairly traditional comparative analysis. So you're going to take one of the poems that you're reading here, and then think about, and you can do research, Google it if you want. I don't really care about that so much. I want you to have an authentic kind of personal reaction to it, but if you need to do some background research to get some of what's going on, that's fine. But try to pick one that speaks to you, that you just like for whatever reason. And then what you're going to do for our comparative analysis here is pick a song that you're familiar with that you could compare them. So we're going to treat the poem and the song as two texts that we're then comparing. And again, don't just Google something to compare to like We Real Cool. Try to do it authentically. Pick a poem that you like and then think about songs that you know and that you like and that kind of deal with the same sorts of themes. And the best kind of comparison isn't just a really, really generic, it deals with death or love or some huge abstract idea, but try to dig a little bit deeper so you're creating some more nuanced, some more complex connections between the two texts that you've chosen, the song and the poem. All right, so fairly straightforward actually. and which is what the assignment lays out. You're going to have kind of an introduction, develop 3 what we're calling body paragraphs, conclusion, but we're not going to write this as a stale old traditional essay. I don't want to read them, you don't want to write them, let's not do that. We're going to do this as a video essay. So what I'm suggesting is that you can make yourself a little outline, so you're not trying to do this A, off the top of your head and just ramble through it, but B, you're also not having to write a whole essay and then just read it into the camera. That's boring too for everybody. So don't do it that way. Way it down at the bottom of the assignment, I kind of explain why we're doing it this way. Not only I think is it good in the online environment to be a little more visual and interactive like that, but I feel like being able to talk in a more natural way than just reading an essay to us about how a poem and song are connected. You have to actually have a deeper knowledge to speak more naturally or a little bit less formally about that than you would if you just wrote down what you know, and that's kind of the limits of it, like we would get with an essay. So when I say video essay, it doesn't also just mean that you have to stare at the camera, which can be kind of awkward and just talk to us, or especially if you're like trying to read stuff or look for quotes or whatever. If you're comfortable doing that, that's actually pretty cool, because then we do get kind of that visual human element. But there's lots of other creative ways to capture your screen, and as I mentioned here in the assignment, there's lots of different free screen capture tools, many built into operating systems that people have or comes bundled with a webcam. If you use Chrome, there's like extensions to the browser that you can use. Just do some Googling and you'll find, you know, way more options than you probably ever wanted. If you even need that, you might already have a good way of capturing your screen or whatever if you've done this kind of stuff before. So you could speak into the camera. That's kind of a nice human touch. But you could also capture your screen so that you would have something visually for us to look at, kind of like what I'm doing here. I'm talking over it, but I'm also clicking through. And what you could do is maybe click through the essay or the poem, the song, visual material, you know, whatever you want to supplement the argument that you're making. Have your outline open that we can return to. Try to make it a little more dynamic so we're not just staring at the same text the whole time. But again, there's lots of creative ways that you can do this. So you're going to create your video file where you've talked to us sort of naturally, right, about the poem story or the poem song connection that you're developing. Try to, again, to really connect like lines and specific words and phrases, not just big overarching themes, so really make that connection strong. I'm going to recommend that you either upload your video file into YouTube, which is easy enough to do, and you can set it up so that no one's going to find it. You can turn off the comments if you're just worried about, you know, others stumbling onto it and being a jerk. Or you can just load it into your drive space where it's really secure, like only you can get to it there. But we're also going to take one more step forward, and this sort of sets us up for Unit 6. So it's a little bit more work in Unit 5, but it eases the workload in Unit 6. So now that you've finished your video and you've loaded it into Drive or maybe YouTube, which YouTube is a Google product. Most people know that, but maybe you haven't stumbled on that. So if you have a Google credential, which you do, you have access to YouTube, even if you've never used it. We're going to build a new portfolio page that will be, you know, you can call it a comparison essay or a Unit 5 comparison video essay. It doesn't really matter. So build a new page in your portfolio site. And then we're going to use this Insert tab. And then we can either choose from, depending on where that video file is, you're choosing it so you're not like, it's actually really seamless once you've got it, a video file produced and into your Drive or YouTube space or some like Google credentialed place of yours. Obviously, you need to be signed in with the same Google account, like wherever you put the file and where your portfolio building space is so it can find the thing that you're looking for. And then simply choose it from that file list, or if you go to YouTube, it will default to the video search, but we just can look for the uploaded videos and then just choose it from your list, and it'll plunk right in there. It's actually pretty sweet. Make sure that, of course, you publish, right, once you've updated your portfolio, and then simply post that URL to the discussion board here. So it's some technical steps that we're going through, and like I say here, if you get caught up with any of it, by all means, you know, be in touch with me and we can figure that out. Obviously, if you wait till the last minute, that becomes a little problematic. But hopefully the walkthrough here, the screenshots, the basic assignment, you can kind of manage. It's pretty much all we're doing for Unit 5. And it produces really great results. It updates your portfolio. It lets us see and hear one another in a really great way, which I think is important. So a little bit of work, but well worth it for the results that we get. Which actually leads into Unit 6, our midterm unit. So I'm just going to jump into that and give us a little preview so you can be thinking kind of ahead to this a little bit. Okay, so by Unit 6, we're at our midterm. There's a little survey to take. Again, just sort of checking to see how things are going. And Unit 6 is returning to our portfolios and kind of doing a midterm reflection, just taking stock of where we're at. So the assignment here really has two steps or parts to it. And step 1 is kind of conditional on how actively you've been updating your portfolio up to this point. And if you haven't really, that's okay. Now's the chance that we can really get it up to date and load stuff in that maybe we haven't yet or we forgot to or whatever the case might be. So again, back to Unit 5, where you're taking that extra step to load your video into your portfolio. You know, it would have to happen here as part of Unit 6 anyway, so we might as well just do it as we go. So first of all, we're going to go back to our portfolio sites and really just flesh them out, clean them up, update them, going back through all the units that we've done to make sure that whatever we produced or you know, the work that we did is now reflected in a portfolio page. Even if you built your pages just like Unit 1, Unit 2, etc., etc. So of course, like it says here, Unit 1 was just setting up your portfolio and doing your kind of introducing yourself page. So that's pretty much done. We don't need to really return to that. In Unit 2, though, we did some stuff that I didn't indicate we should build out to our portfolio since we used some different tools, but now is a good chance to build a new page, maybe like the Poetry Padlet or Unit 2, or again, however you want to name and organize this is sort of up to you. But we want the portfolio, once we've gone through this, to really reflect everything that we can capture, you know, legitimately in our course up to this point. So you're not redoing the work. In many cases, it's just cutting and pasting, maybe grabbing an image that you might maybe post it to the Padlet and just plunking it into a new page. You don't have to re-explain it or redo the work. Again, we're just really updating the portfolio by moving stuff that exists in earlier units into the portfolio space on new pages that we're building. Again, we try to keep this organized, not just one humongous string of stuff, so we want to build out some pages. And depending, again, on how much is already in your portfolio, this may be really quick or it may take a little doing, you know, whatever is the case. Unit 5 we already will have done by that point, so we're good to go. Okay, so that's step 1, is just getting the thing into shape and up to date. Step 2, and this is the most useful part at this point, is to build one new page here. We're going to call it midterm review or reflection or something along those lines. And then you're going to choose 3 of our course objectives, and they're listed here. And really, we've done them all multiple times, but just choose 3 for now. And you are going to explain how you've achieved those objectives, or you're going to point to work that you've done previously in the course as evidence for having like surveyed and studied a wide range of poems. That's pretty easy, right? We've done that in almost every unit. Discuss the elements of selected poems, recognize and appreciate personal and public value of poetry. Pretty broad, abstract stuff, but I think we've done it in almost every unit that we've done. You just want to connect those dots for this assignment. So you're taking 3 objectives. For each of those 3, you're going to have 2 specific examples of projects or works that you've done. And the only thing I'm asking you to do then is not to reproduce that work in the midterm now, right? So it's like you don't have to duplicate from just the updating part. But your midterm page should include links backwards to pages on your portfolio that have that work. And of course, you might use the same example for a couple of different objectives. You would obviously just, in your midterm page or your reflection page, just explain, right, the explanation is going to be different because the objective is different. So maybe you're pointed to a slightly different aspect of the project or the work for how it shows that you can analyze and discuss selected elements of poems. There might be stuff that you've done in the course that you feel like just is more intangible maybe, or it's not as easy to produce or reproduce on the portfolio page. So you can by all means reference it. Don't feel just locked into like the artifacts that we've created necessarily, but you will then have to sort of describe or explain in a lot more detail than just the link backwards to an existing page and the explanation of how the objective fits. Okay? So as always, use that publish button to make sure you're updating or saving your work, pushing it out so we can actually see it when we visit your portfolio. And then once it's all said and done, everything's updated, use this discussion board here to repost or post the URL to your portfolio. There's no reply component here. I only use the discussion board just as a convenient collection tool for me, so I can go in and grade them, and I have them all kind of in a list there that I can look at. All right, so that's kind of a lot to digest across a couple of different units, but I think it's good to maybe get a little bit ahead because I felt like I was scrambling just to catch up. Again, because I was under the weather, and that sort of gets in the way of everything. Everything sucks. A little note at the bottom of Unit 6 here that we have a group project that we're moving into as we turn the corner from midterm. So I'm really encouraging you, if you don't already, to jump ahead into Unit 7 and just take a look at how that's going to work. The biggest sort of foundational part of making the group project work is this early check-in with your groups. And there's a check-in document here that's built. So everybody will actually be getting into their group like space here. The sooner the better to just figure out, and this is really the key for me, is just figuring out a means of communication that the group agrees on moving forward. The earlier that happens, the smoother a project like this can unfold. Okay, so that is a lot to think about. As always, especially as we get into some more of these kind of adventurous units, like the video essay, for example, don't hesitate to be in touch with me if you're unsure of how to proceed, or running into technical difficulties, if you don't understand the assignment, whatever it happens to be. Okay, kind of a long thing here, but at least we've covered a bunch of territory.